It has been more than 2 years since Sony and Microsoft released the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S, ushering a new era of console gaming. While fans have been treated to plenty of compelling experiences on these new platforms, the transition period hasn't been the smoothest, largely due to the pandemic affecting development cycles for games and global semiconductor shortage, causing severe supply issues for these machines. This is why so many developers are still choosing to release their games for PS4 and Xbox One, and this feature will detail 25 such games. Monster Hunter Rise. Monster Hunter Rise enjoyed a great critical and commercial reception on the Nintendo Switch, and naturally, fans on other systems wanted a chance to experience this latest entry in the long-running saga. The developer has delivered just that with the subsequent release of Monster Hunter Rise on PS4 and Xbox One, and the Sunbreak expansion for the same is set to follow soon. The base game released on January 20th of this year, so interested fans can already try it out. Deliver Us Mars. Kyokan delivered an excellent adventure in the form of Deliver Us the Moon, and fans are really curious about the next project from the developer. Deliver Us Mars will be expanding upon the strengths of its predecessor, and fans can expect a more engaging gameplay loop this time around with better exploration options and clever puzzles, among other improvements. Deliver Us Mars released on February 2nd, 2023 for PC and all last-gen and current-gen consoles. Little Devil Inside. Little Devil Inside caught the attention of many players with its intriguing premise and fresh art style, and we are really excited for this game as well. Players will be embarking on a grand adventure spanning multiple areas, and you'll be tasked with hunting down hideous beasts of different shapes and sizes. It's been in development for some time now, and we're still waiting on its release date at the time of writing this feature. Wanted Dead. Wanted Dead looks like a thunderous throwback to middle-market action-adventure games of the PS2 era, and we're here for it. Currently in development at Soleil, Wanted Dead thrusts players into a conspiracy tale and asks them to use their wits and swords to crawl out of the many dangers that punctuate this adventure. The action is brutal, with fast and frenetic gunfights and melee finishers, making for a dynamic gameplay loop that should be a joy to engage with. It's said to release on February 14th, 2023 for PC and current-gen and last-gen consoles. Atomic Heart. Set against the backdrop of an alternate history Soviet Union, Atomic Heart tells the story of Agent P3 fighting back against the machines that are posing a threat to the existence of humankind. Players will have plenty of options when it comes to dealing with enemies. You could use your guns, a handcrafted melee weapon, or supernatural powers, like telekinesis, to clear your way through the varied hordes of machines in this one hell of an adventure. Atomic Heart releases for PC and consoles on February 21st, 2023. Like a Dragon Ishin. Like a Dragon Ishin is one of the most underrated games in the Yakuza franchise, and that largely comes down to the game being available only in Japan. Now though, RGG Studio is working on bringing this cult classic to a global audience with a full-fledged remake of Like a Dragon Ishin. The project is being built using Unreal Engine 4, and players can expect a ton of gameplay overhauls in addition to the visual facelift, which should make this remake a worthwhile experience. It'll be released on February 17th, 2023 for PC and last-gen and current-gen consoles. Scars Above. Scars Above is set in a mysterious alien structure, and you assume the role of a scientist who finds herself trapped in this hostile environment. You must use everything at your disposal to find a way out of this environment, while engaging in a deeper mystery revolving around this structure. The developers have stated that the gameplay will be a challenging affair, so you'll have to make judicial use of your firepower and abilities to get through tough enemy encounters. It releases for PC, last-gen, and current-gen consoles on February 28th. Sherlock Holmes: The Awakened. Sherlock Holmes: The Awakened is a modern remake of the 2008 classic by the same name. This adventure pits the famous detective against grotesque monsters and otherworldly threats. Much like Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1, you'll have to collect clues to build up a conclusion in order to get to the epicenter of the mystery, which should be a fun time for fans of the franchise. It releases for all major consoles and PC sometime during Q1 of 2023. Wolong Fallen Dynasty. Team Ninja has done a wonderful job with Neo and its sequel, so it stands to reason that the hype for its spiritual successor, Wolong Fallen Dynasty, is off the charts. You assume the role of a warrior as he rises from a nobody to a legend, and that journey is filled to the brim with plenty of tough boss fights set against varied locales. Wolong Fallen Dynasty will feature a dynamic combat loop where players can mix and match different weapons, elemental beasts, and other tactics to defeat enemies. Suffice to say, it looks amazing. It releases for PC and all current-gen and last-gen console platforms on March 3rd, 2023. Fatal Frame: Mask of the Lunar Eclipse. Koei Tecmo has been doing a great job with the Fatal Frame remasters, which have proven to be the best way to experience these classics on modern platforms. The developer is hard at work on remastering the 2008 Fatal Frame: Mask of the Lunar Eclipse, which will modernize the gameplay along with new additions like a photo mode, new costumes, and of course updated visuals. It'll be released on March 8th, 2023 for all major console platforms and PC. WWE 2K23. After a rough last couple of years, the WWE games made a grand return with WWE 2K22, which proved to be a solid experience with plenty of highs along with a few apparent flaws. This year's entry will feature improved graphics, better gameplay, and the showcase mode will be putting the spotlight on popular wrestler John Cena. It releases for all major last-gen and current-gen console platforms and PC on March 17th, 2023, though fans opting for the deluxe edition will get early access on March 14th. Resident Evil 4 Remake. Resident Evil 4 is considered by many to be one of the best games in this long-running survival horror franchise, and for good reason. Resident Evil 4 features a solid and enjoyable gameplay loop with plenty of variety amongst its levels, and the game has surprisingly stood the test of time so many years after its release. The developer is hard at work on a full-fledged remake of this classic, which would open this gem up to a broader audience, and fans can expect many new additions, including, but not limited to, new side quests, and new weapons. It releases for PS4, 5, Xbox Series, and PC on March 24th, 2023. System Shock Remake. System Shock is easily one of the most influential games when it comes to immersive sims, and countless fans will have fond memories of carefully inching their way through the game's corridors while the rogue AI Shodan plots its next move. Those fans and many newcomers will get a chance to experience this classic in a new light with Night Dive's remake of System Shock, which will add modern gameplay conveniences alongside better visuals. It releases for all major consoles and PC sometime in March of 2023. Street Fighter 6. The beloved fighting series is making a grand return with Street Fighter 6, which is bringing a ton of new things to the table. But the star of the show is undoubtedly the move to an open world in the form of World Tour mode, which should hopefully open up new avenues for gameplay. This entry will also be adding a commentary system alongside the usual PvE and PvP content that one would expect from a game of this ilk. It'll be released for all major consoles and PC on June 2nd, 2023. MLB The Show 23. MLB The Show 22 was a great game, and this year's entry is set to bring better visuals and marginal gameplay improvements to this well-established formula. While not a lot has changed with MLB The Show 23, fans of annualized sports releases know this and they are there for it. It releases for all major consoles on March 28th, and pre-orders for the same are live now. The Legend of Heroes: Trails to Azure. The Legend of Heroes: Trails to Azure released to great critical and commercial acclaim in 2011, but the game was exclusive to the Japanese region with no English support available. While fan-made patches have been around for some time now, the developer is working on an official global release for the game with English language support, and it is scheduled to release for all major last-gen and current-gen consoles and PC on March 14th, 2023. The Legend of Heroes: Trails into Reverie. Much like Trails to Azure that we discussed previously, The Legend of Heroes: Trails into Reverie is also being introduced to a global audience with a re-release. Players will be taking control of a group of warriors as they embark on a grand adventure in this fantastical realm, and you'll be able to freely change between characters with the Crossroads system. The combat is largely rooted in turn-based traditions, but the developers have stated that it'll have a lot of dynamic elements to it which should make it more engaging than before. Trails into Reverie releases for PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series, and Nintendo Switch on July 7th, 2023. Lies of P. NeoWiz's upcoming Lies of P is based on the popular story of Pinocchio, but it takes place in a dark fantasy world filled to the brim with all kinds of hostile threats, and you must best these threats in the game's Souls-like combat to complete your quest and become human once again. Players will be able to attach equipment like flamethrowers on their bodies to help in battle, and you can also unlock different skills to expand your moveset before facing the toughest foes in the game. Lies of P will release for all major consoles and PC sometime this year. Armored Core 6: Fires of Rubicon. From Software is returning to this long-forgotten franchise with Armored Core 6: Fires of Rubicon, which is set to usher in a new era for this mecha brawler series. Players will once again be customizing their mechs with different weapons and abilities to get through enemies and bosses, which will obviously be challenging like the Souls games. Of course, fans are really excited to see FromSoft's new take on this franchise, and hopefully we won't have to wait too long. Armored Core 6 is probably set to release sometime this year for all major console platforms and PC. Crash Team Rumble. In development at Toys for Bob, Crash Team Rumble is a multiplayer game with a simple goal, that is, to capture more Wumpa Fruit than the opponent. Matches will take place between 2 teams of 4 players, and the maps are going to be elaborate platforming jungle gyms, complete with level-specific obstacles and opportunities to grab more fruit. The game modes seem rooted in genre traditions like CTF and free-for-all, but it looks like a fun time regardless. Crash Team Rumble will release for PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series consoles sometime this year. Minecraft Legends. Minecraft Legends is a strategy game set against the backdrop of this popular universe. You will have to command your army against entire fortresses, and it looks like a really fun time. It will be released for all major console platforms and PC on April 18th, 2023. Lord of the Rings Gollum. Set against a backdrop of a fantasy universe, Lord of the Rings Gollum will put players in the shoes of Gollum as he navigates through this world while dealing with its split personality disorder. The gameplay will have stealth as a major focus, and Gollum will also be able to use its agility to climb and get around environments with relative ease. It looks like a promising project, and it's set to release for all major consoles and PC sometime this year. Beyond Good and Evil 2. Beyond Good and Evil 2 is one of the more interesting games on this list, and mostly because it has had a turbulent development cycle lasting almost 15 years and counting. It's obviously a pretty ambitious project with a lot of moving parts, but with departures and delays left, right, and center, it looks highly unlikely that the game will see the light of day anytime soon. While it's officially slated to release for PS4 and Xbox One, only time will tell whether the developer will release this game for these decade-old machines or not, if it manages to reach the finish line. Dead Island 2. Much like Beyond Good and Evil 2, Dead Island 2 is also famous for its infamous development cycle, but thankfully the game has managed to crawl out of the depths of its development hell and is finally approaching its imminent release of the 28th of April, 2023. Dead Island 2 will feature the same brutal melee combat that fans love, along with RPG-esque progression mechanics and support for co-op gameplay, and we will be diving into the game when it launches. The Wolf Among Us 2. The Wolf Among Us is considered by many fans to be one of Telltale's finest works to date, which is why fans are extremely hyped at the prospect of a sequel. The Wolf Among Us 2 is being developed with the assistance of Ad Hoc Studio, and expectations are naturally high for this project. While we don't know much about the story side of things at the moment, we know that this game will be released in full, unlike the last entry, which was released in an episodic fashion. The Wolf Among Us 2 is set to release for all major last-gen and current-gen console platforms sometime this year. And that brings us to the end of the video. A quick request: we upload new videos every single day, and if you like what we're doing, please consider subscribing. It really helps us out. Also, don't forget to enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon so that you can receive daily video updates. Thanks for watching.